Sai Ram, for everyone who is online, we are just trying to uh, fix some technical glitch in the bhajan hall. Please bear with us. Thank you. Let me unmute. You see? Okay, let's start the session with 3 ohms. Om. Om. Dear Swami, we are so grateful to be able to meet here together in your presence today. While we are here together studying your word in your Bhagavata Vahini, we ask that you open our ears and hearts to whatever it is you want us to learn. Please speak through each one of us and help us progress in our spiritual journey. Jai Sai Ram. Sai Ram, everyone. Just a reminder to mute your cell phones. Let's be respectful and let's ask the questions that arise from the discussion. So, just reviewing from the last session, we did listen to chapter 17 and discussed a couple of pointers we talked about recognizing the divine grace. We talked about gratitude. We talked about developing wisdom to be able to recognize the divinity around us. And of course, we talked about how important surrendering is and the practice of Namasmarana. We revolved the entire discussion around the example of Krishna's Vishwarupa Darshan that he had granted to Arjuna, and how we can sustain that kind of yearning through constant integrated awareness. So I know I have truly just run through the entire hour session, but if there is anything anyone would like to add, feel free to do it right now. Okay, so today we are going to start with chapter 18. And we will be listening to the chapter, and then following, we have a couple of questions. Every week now, we will try to finish a chapter because we do need to get to completing 42 chapters. Of course, we will come back to our discussions in detail, but most of these chapters are have an underlying element of discussion topics that we have already done. And so that's why we are focused on completing the chapters at this point, and then when and moving along to other values that we can discuss as it will come around in the future chapters. Jai Sai Ram.
Bhagavatha Vahini, Chapter 18, The Escape of Takshaka. When Vyasa yielded thus to his importunity, Parikshit, who was all attention, replied in a voice choked with emotion, Master, I do not see clearly the reason why my grandfather destroyed the Khandava Vana, the Khandava forest, by means of a conflagration. Tell me how the Lord Krishna helped him in the exploit. Please make me happy by relating to me this episode. Parikshit fell at the sage's feet and prayed that this may be described to him. Vyasa complimented him and said, Right, you have made a request which does credit to you. I shall comply. He continued, Once, when Krishna and Arjuna were resting happily on the sands of the Yamuna, oblivious of the world and its tangles, an aged Brahmin approached them and said, Son, I am very hungry. Give me a little food to appease it. I cannot keep alive unless you give me this. At these words, they were suddenly made aware of a strange presence. Though outwardly he appeared natural, there was a divine effulgence around him which marked him out as someone apart. Meanwhile, Krishna came forward and accosted him. O great Brahmin, you do not appear merely human. You will not be satisfied with ordinary food, I can surmise. Ask me the food that you desire for. I shall certainly give you that. Arjuna stood at a distance watching this conversation with amazement. For he heard Krishna, who allayed the hunger of all beings in all the worlds, asking this lean hungry Brahmin what food will satisfy him. Krishna was enquiring so quietly and with so much consideration that Arjuna was filled with curiosity and surprise. The Brahmin suddenly burst into laughter and said, O Lord, do you not recognize me? There is nothing in this world, nay, in all the 14 worlds that is beyond your ken. I am Prana, one vital principle in your creation. I am Agni, the fire principle. I regret to inform you that even I have fallen ill. To cure my indigestion, I feel I must consume the arboreal juice of the Khandava Vana. That forest must be burnt into flames. That alone can appease my hunger and restore my appetite. At this, Krishna asked him, Well, consume it. Why did you come to me for this? This is indeed amazing. You have the power to reduce the universe into ash. Why do you have to crave another's help? When Krishna asked him this, pretending that he did not know, Agni answered, O Lord, you know everything. Does not the great serpent Takshaka live in this Khandava Vana with his kith and kin, his attendants and associates? Indra, the god of rain, is his close friend. So he has undertaken the responsibility of guarding that forest against fire and other calamities. He has given his word of honor that he will save the forest and thus save Takshaka. So, as soon as I start eating up the forest, Indra will send his minions and soak the place with rain. And I will be scorched into inaction. I cannot eat any more. So I am taking refuge in you, O Lord. Krishna laughed at his fears. He said, If so, we shall help you out. Tell us, what we should do, and we are ready." Agni was delighted. He exclaimed, "I am indeed blessed. I am saved. You can, if you only decide to keep back the rain that Indra showers, by covering the forest with a roof of arrows that will allow me to consume the forest undisturbed." Krishna assured him that his request will be fulfilled. Then your grandfather, Arjuna, addressed Agni thus, "You can burn up the Vana without hesitation. My arms have enough strength to oppose and overwhelm not only the Indra, but even 10 millions of them. But I have not got with me the arrows necessary for this operation and the chariot that can carry all that weight. If these are supplied, I shall carry out your task with the gracious permission of Krishna." Agni Deva, the god of fire, was gladdened at this. He granted Arjuna the 2 boons, an inexhaustible arrow sheath from which he could draw out a continuous supply of arrows, and a chariot with the Maruti flag. Besides, he created the Agniastra, the weapon of fire, and placing it in the hands of Krishna, took leave of both of them. Son Parikshit, Krishna, you must remember, accepted that weapon only to satisfy the god of fire. He has no need of such weapons. There is no weapon more effective than his will. It can, in the fraction of a second, transform the earth into sky and the sky into earth. He acts the human role when he moves along the people, and so men frame their own guesses without understanding the inner significance of his acts. That is but the consequence of the delusion that reveals the vision of the man. After taking leave of Krishna in this manner, Agni Deva started consuming the Khandava forest. Just then, exactly as anticipated, Indra sent his attendants on the mission of saving the forest from destruction. Their efforts failed to rescue it. They returned to their master and reported their failure. So, Indra himself, with his stalwart followers, rushed to the scene to save the Khandava Vana, and fell upon your grandfather Arjuna. Arjuna received him with a shower of arrows from his famous Gandiva bow. Indra too fought with all his might. Within minutes, the followers of Indra turned back, unable to withstand the rain of arrows which pelted them from all sides. Indra realized that the person who inflicted the defeat was his own son Arjuna. He was overcome with shame at this. He regretted that he could not defeat his own progeny and returned sad. Meanwhile, the god of fire consumed the forest merrily and with hearty appetite, swallowing everything with his 1,000 red tongues and raising a huge conflagration. Only ash was left behind. Seeing this, the birds and beasts of the forest tried to escape from this holocaust, but they could not. They were caught by the flames and roasted alive. Krishna was going around the forest in his chariot to prevent any denizen from running out into the open for safety, especially the animals and the snakes. He discovered the snake Takshaka, a great friend of Indra, in the act of escaping from the fire. Krishna called Arjuna near him to point this out to him. That gave Takshaka the chance to wriggle out and speed towards Kurukshetra. Agni pursued the snake. He sought the help of the wind god to catch up with the fleeting speed. So, Takshaka sought refuge with Maya, the architect of the Devas and the Dhanavas. He and Maya were moving fast towards Kurukshetra. Krishna noticed this and he pursued them. Just then, Maya surrendered to Arjuna and sought his protection for himself and his protege, Takshaka. Arjuna granted his wish, and so Maya, out of a sense of gratefulness, fell at his feet and said, "O son of Pandu, I will never forget this kindness. Whatever is in my power, I shall gladly do for you. You have only to indicate your desire." Your grandfather reflected for a while and replied, Maya, if you yearn to satisfy me, I demand but one thing. Build a sabha, an assembly hall, for my brother to hold court, the like of which is not to be found on earth. It must be so grand that no deva, dhanava or gandharva, god, ogre or heavenly angels can ever hope to build such a one for himself. It must fill all who see it with amazement. I have no desire other than this. Krishna too added a suggestion. In that hall of wonder, you must establish a throne of wonder for Dharmaraja to be seated. Then only will the hall be fully magnificent. Dear son Parikshit, did you note how much Krishna loved your grandfather? Do you need any more convincing proof than this to know that he is ever mindful of the welfare of his devotees? The wicked Duryodhana was overcome with envy at the sight of that amazing hall. Duryodhana, Dushasana and their companions were puzzled and discomfited into humiliation when they were led to believe that there was water where there was none, and there were doors in the place where there were no doors. They fell in so many places and knocked their heads against so many walls that they nurtured unquenchable hatred against the Pandavas. The Kauravas plotted incessantly to destroy the Pandavas, but since the Pandavas had the grace of Krishna in a large measure, they were able to overcome them as if they were mere child's play and to enjoy varied manifestations of his mercy. The Kauravas developed violent hatred against Krishna too, for they knew that the son of Yashoda was the bestower of fortune on the Pandavas. But what can anyone do to the very Lord of all creation? To cultivate hatred against him is a sign of their ignorance, that is all. When Vyasa was thus relating the story of Takshaka, Parikshit was listening with rapt attention. When he finished, Parikshit queried in wonder, Master, what was the reason which provoked the wicked Kaurava to ill-treat and insult my grandmother, Draupadi? How did grandfathers bear the insults they heaped on their spouse? How did it happen that they were only onlookers, unable to retaliate or punish, in spite of their prowess and undoubted manliness, when their spouse was dishonored publicly in the royal court? I find it beyond me to understand how these insults came about. Tell me the real facts and enlighten me. You can clear my doubts, I'm sure.
Okay, Sairam. This is a little story. I think I have never heard it, but I guess I have not read the entire Bhagavatam, so I don't know of Takshaka's story. I do know of the magical palace that has been mentioned here. Anyway, so a few discussion points. I know they are not too deep, but in the story, Agni's hunger leads to the burning of the Kandava forest, a dramatic act, of course. What lessons, how can we understand the interplay of destruction and creation? I think that is something that we have not talked about so far, creation and destruction. And I think that is something that we can definitely discuss on this. These are just pointers just came to me and I'm just writing it down. So please feel free to indulge into any of these or add on to this. How do you interpret the relationship between divine intervention and human effort? That is something that we had discussed in the past as well. But in this case, in what ways might this dynamic influence our understanding of fate? When I say dynamic, I mean the relationship between the divine intervention and human effort, and unfolding of the life's events. As we grow, we have so many life's events that we have always talked about. How does that impact our understanding of such a relationship that we talked about in the past, but again just wanted to bring it forth. despite possessing extraordinary power, Krishna obviously chooses to operate within the world. What does this say about the nature of his true power and authority? How can we apply this lesson of transcending material constraints to overcome personal challenges and cultivate inner strength? So these are just a few things that I thought about, but we can start with wherever, you know, everyone feels that we can start with. So basically just let's start with destruction and creation. Maybe that is something that we have not talked about.
Sairam. Um, See, I can relate to these wildfires in California. That's the thought that immediately goes. Because, see, what we generally don't don't look at it as a hunger for the fire god that is causing the destruction. So we don't think it that way. We just think that it is something bad because so many natural things are dying, because when the fire just destroys the whole thing, that is always considered negative. But only is, for example, when a volcano erupts and then the whole thing, when the lava flows and then it destroys the whole thing, after a few years, that is where fertile thing grows. And so maybe it's nature's way of cleansing itself. And destruction is part of it. I mean, we know that life is born, it's going to die. So maybe it's in that cycle, even those things, that the major thing is also part of that cycle. So maybe we don't have to consider too much or read too much into being negative. That's the thought that came to
Sairam, I'm going to go back to this chapter. So at the beginning, uh, you know, Agni Deva comes, in the form of a rishi, ask him for help. Krishna sees immediately who it is, and he knows what's going to happen. And yet, you know, that Krishna as God could have cured him of, his hunger. You know, uh, so then this all this fire need not have really taken place, but he didn't choose that. So what reminds me is, uh, you know, when we ask God, that's what they say. If you ask God for something, watch out, you might get it. And so you have to be careful in what we ask. For example, if we say, you know, I want a car right now, and pray, and then you get it. And he delays in giving it to you, and then, and suddenly you get even more intense and ask, maybe you'll get it. Maybe you'll get into an accident right next moment. So he knows when to give, but he's not going to, give everything, he's going to limit it to what you are asking. So I think that's what's happening here. It's a destruction that is happening. At the same time, that's what he asked. He just said, I want my hunger to be, taken care of. And
Yeah.
that's what I was finding it strange that he did not avoid, okay, your hunger is taken care of, don't,
Right.
why cause all this. The chapter talks about a lot of animals being, driven, and
Yeah.
they were trying to get out, and they were being pushed back into
Yes.
the fire.
Mhm. Yeah. So again, I think so for me it was more about yeah, everything that, so this is all transient, right? So nothing is permanent. Many times we don't remember that. We always think we are here permanently. And I think this chapter really, I mean, I don't know, that was the first thought that I had, the destruction and creation, and that process that I understand. And I also think that I'm sure that if I read the Bhagavatam, would have known what is the actual role that Takshaka played at some point. Yeah. So that's why, because he runs into Kurukshetra.
No,
Yeah.
Dakshaka, Saira. No, I know. Dakshaka has a very big role to play. He is key. Okay, so that's why he escapes the fire. Krishna could have killed him or pushed him back into the fire, but no. Also, Dakshaka has the boon that he drank the Amrita
That's-
when they churned the ocean. So he is Siranjeevi. He won't die. Nobody can kill him. I don't want to spoil his role, but he plays an important role. Yeah.
So Takshaka is the same when the churning of the ocean happened.
Okay.
That is
I
what I'm
read that Dakshaka, Vasuki, and Nagsesha are brothers. Though he is a snake, a serpent, he is not fully a snake. It's a, what do you call, a tribe. He is like half human and snake. It's like a Ragu Ketu, like, probably his head is a snake, body is human.
Yeah.
So a lot of stories are there behind Dakshaka. So that's why. But nobody can kill him. That's why Arjuna's help they asked to kill, but even he couldn't. And about the destruction creation, it has to be there. Destruction has to be there for the new thing to come up. For one example, he said about the volcano. The same thing like, the butterfly. When it comes, the eggs come, and then this cocoon and all that, right, lava. And then the beautiful butterfly emerges out of that. When, the caterpillar, when that dies, this new thing. For us also, the water evaporates and then, condensed and evaporate and then again comes back as rain. So for us also life, it is the cycle, it has to. What is born, it has to die. It must. That's a reality.
All right. We can move along to the next chapter if this is if we don't have anything else to discuss, because we did talk a lot about these pointers even earlier. So I just have to go back, and because I saw that my PowerPoint also was not saved. So please go ahead. Yeah.
Just one added, I think, which we already kind of see. Often, what we think is we take the blame on human beings for anything that happens. For example, the forest fire in California, we try to think that somebody must have lit the fire in some place where they should not have. And often we try to see human beings as the reason why all these things are happening. I think it's beyond all that. That's what I'm tending to think. So it's natural. So I don't think we should take the blame as human beings for several things. That I mean, human
That
beings
can
where
be, yeah.
where they can be, but many times we tend to find who did it.
But then the question that arises is, what is our role within that destruction
Correct.
and
I knew that
creation?
was coming. Yeah.
Uh,
Please. Yes. That's a very good question. Yes, please go ahead.
I was asking that question. That I don't know.
So one thing, I know like we are just emphasizing more on the wildfires and all those things. Like I'm not really convinced with that. Like because if that is the God's act and all, if any natural calamities, it could be a hurricane or also is the same kind of thing. Like which is a destruction. If you consider that like to destruct to reconstruct, rather than that, I feel that it is more of wiring and rewiring our brains. Thought process is more like how do we need to unwire what we learned, whatever the mistakes or something this is, and rewire it to the best way to the spiritual journey. That could be more aligned towards the way of constructing and reconstructing ourselves to go into the path. Because otherwise, like if everything is like, okay, because it's all about the drama. That's what, as Krishna knows that, like, it's all known, like, okay, Krishna recognized he's Agni and what he wants. And the other part, surprise for me, is like Arjuna was laughing or surprising, saying that, oh, amazing, like he's asking, he knows that guy. Oh, I'm still feeling that, like, what does he want to answer it? So if it's all the drama, what is that like he wants to prove himself? So if all this calamity is also a drama, every year we are spending so much on the natural calamities, like whether it could be a hurricane or like whether it could be wildfires and all. If this is all known, everyone should leave it. Like we should not have the U.S. fire departments or U.S. We don't need these things. We just have to accept it and move forward. But I feel it as a wiring and unwiring ourselves within ourselves. What I feel.
Nicely said. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Venkat has touched a sensitive point. So, what is our role in all this? Should we accept it? So, natural calamities, we try to do our best to control, but how much can we control? That's the thing. In spite of all the effort. So the learning point is try to find positive. That's the whole thing. Try to find positive out of the whole picture, that we have limited capabilities, and whatever we can do in this. So that's why they have given this whole aspect of a bigger motive, a bigger objective from the Lord, so that we don't feel so disturbed about it, or so that we don't feel so negative about it. We just accept it as it comes. So you're right. I mean, that doesn't answer that part, why fire department and all those things. But what is our role? What can we do? Since we cannot do anything about it, we'll stay more calm by accepting it as it is. I mean that sounds little awkward, but that's the fact.
Yeah, that kind of leads to one news that came up recently. I mean, there is supposedly an asteroid heading to India, to the Earth, and it's supposed to hit in 2035 or something. And so NASA is looking at how it can be directed away. And so that's actually a big project that's, that's being funded now to work on. So I'm just thinking, is it right? Is it wrong? Is that the way to spend money, or, is it, that's a, likely destruction, but we are doing something to, stop that. Uh, so I'm just throwing it in there. So, as a human mind, it is still trying to fight these, to the best possible extent.
So, Saira, my take on this would be human effort is essential, right? If you talk about my own field in medicine, if you take that higher way of thinking, everything God decides, and I don't need to put any effort, I don't need to treat anyone. We don't need to do scientific research. We don't need to come up with these things. So we are not God. We can't see the big picture. So whatever happens, we are doing these things to extend our help. So we do need fire departments. We do need police departments. We do need some kind of law and order and codes of conduct, right? So we have, as humans, I think we have to focus on that and not just say, oh, there's a fire, I'll just watch it and let them die. That's not, if I can save, I will save. If I'm not able to save, at least I did my effort. I did put my good effort into it. And that rest is God's will, right? I cannot overcome his will. But if there is any way I can help someone in that dire situation, whether to save their life or whatever it may be, we should do. So instead of taking that attitude of everything, we do understand it, everything will happen by his will, but at the same time, we can decide if that person needs to die, that animal needs to escape. We are not in that position. Only Krishna is, of course. So he'll play the whole thing. But as humans, I think we should play our part.
Absolutely. Sorry, 1 minute. Yes, please go ahead, Bhargav.
Yes. I was also thinking about the destruction part, and the human's role in that as well. For example, there's sometimes when destroying things is a good thing than keeping it. For example, I was thinking of deforesting. In some cases, there's extremely old trees which cover the new plants, which take all the nutrients, the water, the sunlight, and it prevents the younger plants from growing. So I was thinking humans' role was, should humans' role be to cut down those old trees? What are humans' roles in those destruction sort of scenarios as well?
Very nice point.
No, you go ahead.
So everything is cyclical, right? Everything. So whether it's natural disasters or other current situations that we're going through, the good and the bad. So Shobha was saying, like, what is our role? Like, we can't just sit there and say, okay, this is happening, let me just. So I started reading the Gita Vahini again. And so about the role, like what dharma is, right? And our duty and what we come with. And so each of us has this duty, like she said, like she can't just sit and watch somebody die or whatever the case may be. And maybe the deforestation, So when the hurricane happened, like not the tsunami happened like years ago, remember, like in Indonesia and all, there was a lot of this talk like, oh, maybe it's just, it was in Indonesia. So that's like the most populated area, right? That whole area. So, oh, like, maybe it was kind of like a rejuvenation, and maybe so, but everything is cyclical, like everything. And I think we're just maybe for most of our lives, we have not maybe seen it, and now we're seeing it either through the media, and we're constantly, but it's been happening, I think maybe not in the way that we're seeing it now. Does that make sense? I mean, if it doesn't make sense,
no,
like
it-
because you guys are going with very like spiritual stuff, and maybe that is the case, but like everything is cyclical in life.
Yeah, so
Everything.
the only caveat to that is we are time bound.
Correct.
So what we see is a very small phase of the entire
Absolutely.
yuga. So yugas are also cyclical. All 4 yugas that we talk about, Kali Yuga has come hundreds of times. It's
Right.
coming again.
Correct.
So it's not so, but we are not there to see the entirety of
No,
that,
but
right?
like Bargo says, we talk about humans. So like, I think these are like good questions, because it makes you think about yourself and what your role in this universe is.
Mm.
That's what this is about. It's about your role.
Yeah.
And whether she is saving a life, which I can't,
Yeah.
or the firefighter is able to fight the fire, which I can't, but I can do something.
Yeah.
So that's the thing. It's about like our role and what we are able to do in our very, very small
Exactly.
or big way.
Yeah.
Right? So
That leads to what I wanted to talk about. Bhargav was asking, what is our role? We talked about it before, our Swadharma. And there are so many dharmas, and the ashrama dharma, remember, Vishesha dharma and all that. What is it? Where are you positioned in life? As a student, your dharma is to study. Okay, as a householder, the father or mother, their dharma is to earn living, provide for the family. So in special situation, you are there, and then that is your dharma. Like Arjuna was in the war field. His dharma was to fight. So like that, if we do our duty, in other words, whatever we are supposed to do in life, in a dharmic, moral way, and that is how we lead our life. We don't have to worry about what is happening out there. If each one of us can lead our life in a dharmic, spiritual way, the rest will be taken care of. We don't have to say this is how it should, the forest, it deserve to, somebody, actually they light fire in the forest. There are crazy people, but it does happen. But we cannot sit back and accept it. But what we can do in our capacity, in the right way, then everything will take care of itself. That's what I feel.
Okay, then I'm thinking about the example I said about the foresting, about cutting down the older trees. Is it our duty, or should we rely on God or some God to essentially do the task for us?
Okay, so God, who is God? God comes to earth in many forms, everyone, each one of us. So the woodcutter is the God who is taking care of removing the tree or chopping the tree down. We are not going to wait for God, quote unquote, with the gata and the chakra and all that to come down. He won't come in that form. So whatever people are supposed to do, again, their duty, their karma, that is what it is. That is how the world is taken care of.
Sairam, I think my take on that, those are very ethically and morally challenging situations, right? Same thing could be said about medical research where you have to kill rats in the labs. You're doing it for a bigger purpose of saving human lives, but what is it to say? Why is it I often think of this, why is a rat's life less important and a human life more important? Where did we decide that I have the right to decide, these are hard questions in a modern world. I don't know what the right answer is. If we're going the spiritual way, I feel like a rat's life and human's life should be weighed equally. Um, but that's not what we're doing. So that's a hard question to answer, I think.
So, yeah.
So it is a little controversial kind of thing, but I just want to bring it. See, okay. Yeah. So see, he fired the whole forest. Like, okay, we are all humans, like our souls, and we recognize each other. Like that's why we are very concerned, like very emotional. If something happens to our human, that's where like if any forest, if any of the wild forests happens or calamities happens, oh, there are like hundreds of deaths happened, hundreds of this thing happened and all. But in this process, like even the other jivas, like even the animals, like what he was mentioning it, even they are all died. But even a crow can recognize the other crow, which we were not recognizing it.
Right.
So one of the controversial is like, okay, I'm just taking a 9/11. It should not hurt anyone. But what happened? Like, okay, why did it happen? Is it just again something a wish kind of thing? Like where it has to kill, like, okay, they segregated everyone, all the bad lives in that particular towers and then smashed it, all this thing. Do we consider that way? So how do we need to consider this?
Yeah.
Side down. I mean, a different thing I wanted to say, and then maybe I can. See, the thing is, even in this episode, Varuna is doing just continuing on your description of the duty, dharma. Varuna's dharma is to pour water. And water, if it is in bulk quantity, it's going to destroy the fire. If fire is very powerful and water is less, then water will be evaporated. So both are.
Same
so
thing
each
with
one is
Vayu. I thought about wind. I was going to
Yeah.
bring up wind.
wind. Yes.
Yeah. He didn't stop his action.
Mhm.
He could also have stopped it.
Yeah.
Because wind, Vayu, without Vayu, there is no way the fire will spread.
Spread. Correct.
This fire spreads only because of the wind that comes in. But Vayu is doing his duty. He didn't stop, right? To
Yeah.
save somebody. He didn't stop that his duty of providing the wind.
Yeah. So
So-
the thing is, if we continue on, I think as human beings, our duty is to save wherever possible. So, for example, Shobhaji, I mean, as a doctor, her role is to save patients. I mean, that has to be there. That is the dharma. So that has to be done. So, but if that goes beyond, then I don't think we should take the blame, because that's we have to just leave it. So I think that's where the thing comes.
Right. So in the case of where they are dealing with a human life or any life, that makes it black and white. You can figure it out. In most of our jobs or in our daily lives, we are not really losing out or killing lives. I should say, no lives are in our hands, playing in our hands. But we should be aware of the destructive, even for a non-living thing. There is a cycle of destruction. There is a cycle of creation. And like right now, we have this entire AI going. Before then, we had the entire iPhone coming and going. Now, iPhone is no big deal. Now we have moved on to much more advanced, technologies. So again, even the technology has its own life cycle. And we can watch it because it's a much smaller life cycle. To Sabita's point, where she was talking about everything has to have that cycle, that is correct. But because this is a small cycle, we are able to see it. For a larger, longer cycle, because we have always read, oh, the earth was destroyed, earth was created again. So that has happened at some point, and it keeps happening over and over again, apparently, whenever it ends. But we don't know that because we have not seen, or rather, we as this Nama Rupa Vyavara, we have not been able to see that. So that comes to the last question. That's why, even in this chapter, he talks about Krishna's divine will. If he wills it, there is nothing to do or nothing to say after that.
No, that destroying, like in the larger scale, The Dakshaka also plays a role in that. They say when he comes, he escaped. It is the end of the Dwaraka Yuga and the beginning of Kali Yuga. Even before that, also they talked about, right, when they all left. So he plays a role in that, the destruction of Dwaraka Yuga, that and the Opera Yuga, and then that Kali Yuga is going to start. So that is where it is. Yeah.
So here comes the differentiation in Ishwar Dharma and Jeev Dharma. So that will answer, I think, most of the question. There are a lot of, these are all Ishwar Dharmas. All Devtas, we're talking about Devtas, the duty which Almighty has assigned to Agni Devta, he is doing his duty. To Varun Devta, he is doing his duty. So we don't have much to do in their duties, number one. We have to focus on our duties. As Shobhaji mentioned, our job is to do our best. That's it. And that's why we have to follow the dharma. For dharma, we need the spiritual guru and the spiritual books. We come back to the same point, That's what we have to focus on. Do your best and leave rest up to him, to God. So what is best, as much as you can do, as we, like Umaji also mentioned and Shobhaji also mentioned, do your best to help out to the maximum, to the maximum. When I came to US, have felt so many people talking about, oh, everyone has their own journey, be it a physical journey or spiritual journey. No, no, and they will find their way out. Then what is your role? We have to help them out. There is no hand holding at all in US. People just, if you ask them something about something, they will give you a link. Follow this link. They will not hold your hand to show, okay, where do you have to go? I talk to my friend, oh, how do I get the immigration? Oh, this is a link you can follow. Oh, this is which doctor? Oh, you can follow this link. Read the reviews. You decide yourself. People don't want to help out, like helping out as we find in India, actually coming forward and telling, okay, this is a good place or this is a better place. You read the reviews. Even the spiritual life also, I want to that someone hold my hand and I can hold others' hands also in this journey. But people say, oh, everyone has their own spiritual journey. We cannot make them more enlightened. We have to do our best, even if we have to. Krishna comes down to the level of Arjuna and shows him, look at my Virat Roop. He did everything to show him the ultimate truth. This is what is already happening. All the universe is all in this mouth. I mean, this is all happening. So why did he have to do all that? We have to come forward. We have to bend down. We have to hold others' hands to elevate them also. That's what Arjuna was shown. This is all being happened. You are just take the credit of it, kind of credit of it. So the point I'm to, so let's not even worry too much about Ishwar's dharmas. I mean, that's what I want to. But from your point, do your best to your intelligence. God has given us a lot of powers, lot of powers. Our intellect, He has given us a lot of powers which we can do wonders with. So do your best and then leave it up to Him. Do not. And what is your dharma? The Guru and books, spiritual books will guide us through that.
From the devas, like Varna or Agni, they don't discriminate. The rain falls on everybody's head, whoever is outside. Doesn't say it's a bad person or good person, I'm not going to wet his head. Right? Agni also, my grandfather would always say, you have to give a lot of respect. It doesn't care who is good or bad. It will scorch anybody who comes near it. Okay, so you have to have that. And then sun doesn't say, oh, this is dirty water, I'm not going to shine on it. I'm going to shine.
Yeah.
So we can learn these lessons from nature. The other point is like spiritual journey is we have to have the yearning to walk in that path. So we can provide an atmosphere for people to come and learn and practice. But individually, it is like the airplane. You put the oxygen mask on yourself first before you help others. So by our behavior, by what we talk about, discussion, people get inspired. It can happen. Then they can practice on their own. So
Absolutely.
we cannot, like the horse example, you can take the horse to the water. You cannot make it drink.
Yeah.
It has to come from within.
Let's take the horse to the water at least.
Yeah. So that those are all great conversation points. But at the end, we have to come back to that one sentence in this entire passage where he says, "If Krishna wills it, everything else would have been would is nothing." So because his divine will, and it is also the fact that people around recognize that divinity in Krishna. The difference there is that people were already elevated at that level to recognize the divinity. In this day and age, because of the Kali Yuga effects, this is how it has always been. It is nothing that it is happening new here. Again, that is what we read. So, again, because of Kali Yuga effect, it's very hard for us to see the divinity. And it is hard for us to recognize a Krishna among the millions, right? And many of us are not able to even pass through that initial test that we will have. We have at least sitting here with Swami's picture in our mind because we have recognized him as our divine being on this earth. Because many of us just pass through a life just with a Krishna that they don't know a form of. Many people do that. And we have had that opportunity to know people who know, and we have experienced Swami. So my point here is that we can go through each one of these things, but we can start at that one level of recognizing what we have today, right? At least we do know what divinity is. That I think is a great start.
I feel that see, we fail in recognizing ourselves. That is the first start. First, recognize yourself. Then we can recognize whether there is a divinity in the other person or not. That is where we need to start.
I want to make another point here. So this is something to do with, karma thing. So all these are karma effects that are going on. But then one quote that I read, we are talking about, God's grace, Krishna's grace. Um, the quote says that, uh, God is looking at every little action of yours, very thoroughly, and not because he wants to punish you for things that you have done wrong, to find out if you have done something which is selfless. At that point, he can give you the grace. So, so he is going to let the karma do its job. He's not going to interfere in that. But when he recognizes that you are, working beyond that, that is when his grace comes. So sometimes you see that happen, when that time I prayed, nothing happened, and suddenly I'm getting it. Why? And so I think, and that's what I want to say here is God's grace will come and it can change the whole thing completely. But then it all depends on our effort. That effort has got to be selfless.
So definitely. So it is God's grace is always coming. We have talked about it in the past also. It depends on how much you can collect. How big is your vessel? So God is not doing anything unusual for anyone. It is our own vessel, it's our own effort, it's our own karma, it's always how much we can collect out of it. That's one part of it. Secondly, just to rephrase what Sabita ji mentioned, the cyclical phenomena. Cyclical phenomena is very much visible. We are working on AI, trying to do all these things in this world. Just for 5,000 years ago, look at the actions, look at that those banas, look at those Agni banas, look at those shelter he could create on the whole forest so that the water doesn't reach the forest. What was that? This is not just a story. This is a fact. This is a science. Cyclical phenomenon. It used to be like that. We are still, it vanished away. We're trying to reach there now again to
In
that
another
level.
form.
We're not there. They used to go to Indra. Indra came and gave birth to, I mean, through obviously Kunti, Arjuna is Indra's son. How did that happen? A Dev giving a human birth. Come on, let's go into the depth of how was it possible? A Devta coming from heaven and conceiving Kunti with Arjuna. So isn't it too much of science? So we are, it's a cyclical phenomena. We are going, we're trying to reach there yet again, the next, after 5,000 years.
Story about um, Gandhari, how she had 101 children that they divided into 100 parts and put it in something, and then it came right.
Mentioned, they put
Right.
the ovum, the fertilized ovum in Kalash. It
Right,
broke down
Kalash.
into 100.
Yeah, 101. So in right, yeah, one rishi, I think, I don't know, Sishta, whoever helped to do that. So in those days, in vitro or whatever. So that is how we used to wonder how can she give birth, but she didn't.
No, that was not, yeah, giving birth was not that kind of a birth. Yeah, yeah. So, yes, absolutely. Yeah.
See, we are talking about all the significant people's birth, like how Arjuna won, like, okay, because of Indra or like some other people. What about the common people during that time? Like, what was that process like? Is
Yeah.
it a similar process, like another god has given the boon to him, or like, what is that?
But we always believe that everything, so in Sanatana Dharma, we always believe everything has been a divine will. There is nothing that has happened on its own. At that time, I think it was more easier to recognize. And I think with time, we have just taken those things for granted, as though we are the doers and we are the owners of this body that is being given to us. Until we sit in a satsang like this, we never even recognize it.
I should congratulate Bhavani ji and the group. We are elevating to that level soon. Okay.
Yes.
I don't know, but yes, yeah.
Yeah. So the bottom line is like, if Brahman has created this universe with the manifestation of doing something, this is exactly what we are all like. We are all part of that bigger goal, like where we are part trying to do something. So this is a cyclical again. Like, okay, it keeps changing because our lives are so short.
Yeah.
We can't do that. Like, but he might be recreating it in a different form to achieve his bigger goal. That's where we are all part of that thing,
Yeah.
journey.
See, there is on the lighter note, there is a story that Brahma, when he created, in charge of creation,
Yeah.
he created people like us, but then he created them so perfectly. They all
There is a
realized self-realization happened within seconds. They all came back. And
there is nothing.
Nothing.
Yeah.
So then Brahma was, what's going on, So he wanted to create a world which can go on and on and on. Then this is not working. So he said, okay, then I will modify it. So he put some defects and this and that, and it is going on very beautifully. It's going on for you guys.
Yes. No, but that is true. That is in the Shiva Puran. Yeah.
I think we are taking that in our IT industry. We create bugs into that, so we keep running our
Yeah, exactly.
again and again.
Yeah, and our jobs keep going thanks to those bugs. Yeah.
What we are doing it.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. I think it's time and we'll end.
Bhagavatha
Oh my
Vahini.
God, I have the 19th chapter here. Okay. Sorry. I didn't realize I added it. So anyway, we do have our Gayatri chanting every day at 9 p.m. And I strongly encourage everyone to sign up for March because we are completed with, our calendar is full to the end of February. And we would like to start with the calendar of March. Also, one more time, I want to reiterate the form. So when we start the first person will start with 3 ohms plus 9 Gayatri chanting. The second person only has to chant 9 Gayatris, and the third person will chant 9 Gayatris and end it with Om and 3 Shantis. So just wanted to reiterate that as well. I know there is a lot going on, and I do post a lot of messages in there, in that group. So feel free to just reach out, even if you cannot sign up online, for the month of March, and we'll work on filling up that calendar from next week. Yeah, I do have the form on the. Oh, yeah, I also have the form, and I will send it on the group. Yes. All right. Let's send. Yes. Sai Ram. All right. Let's end with Om and Three Shantis. Thank you all for joining today. Om. Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Sai Ram.